everyone. Happy Resurrection Sunday. I would like to begin by reading the resurrection story to you out of Luke 24. On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they came to the tomb, bringing the spices they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb. They went in, but they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly 2 men stood by them in dazzling clothes. So the women were terrified and bowed down to the ground. "Why are you looking for the living among the dead?" they asked. "He is not here, but he has been resurrected. Remember how he spoke to you when he was still in Galilee, saying, 'The Son of Man must be betrayed into the hands of sinful men, be crucified and rise on the 3rd day?'" And they remembered his words. Returning from the tomb, they reported all of these things to the 11 and to the rest. Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other women with them were telling the apostles these things. But these words seemed like nonsense to them, and they did not believe the women. Peter, however, got up and ran to the tomb. When he stopped to look in, he saw only the linen clothes, so he went home, amazed at what had happened. Even the disciples who had been with Jesus for so long couldn't comprehend what had happened. It says the words were as nonsense to them. They could not see. And when you can't see, this happens.
Don't get that. Oh no!
I want to read a second story to you from the same chapter, starting in verse 13. Now, that same day, 2 of them were on the way to the village called Emmaus, which was about 7 miles from Jerusalem. Together, they were discussing everything that had taken place. And while they were discussing and arguing, Jesus himself came near and began to walk along with them. But they were prevented from recognizing him. Then he asked them, "What is this dispute that you're having with each other as you were walking?" And they stopped walking and looked discouraged. The one named Cleopas answered him, "Are you the only visitor in Jerusalem who doesn't know the things that happened here in these days?" "What things?" he asked them. So they said to him, "The things concerning Jesus the Nazarene, who was a prophet, powerful in action and speech before God and all the people. And how our chief priests and leaders handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we were hoping that he was the one who was about to redeem Israel. Besides all this, it's the 3rd day since these things have happened. Moreover, some women from our group astounded us. They arrived early at the tomb and found it just as the woman had said, but they didn't see him." He said to them, "How unwise and slow you are to believe in your hearts all that the prophets have spoken. Didn't the Messiah have to suffer these things and enter into his glory?" Then, beginning with Moses and the prophets, he interpreted for them all the things concerning himself in the scriptures. They came near to the village where they were going, and he gave the impression that he was going further. But they urged him, "Stay with us, because it's almost evening, and now the day is almost over." So he went to stay with them. It was as he reclined at the table with them that he took the bread, blessed it, and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were open, and they recognized him, but he disappeared from their sight. And they said to each other, "Weren't our hearts ablaze within us while he was talking to us on the road, explaining scriptures to us?" That very hour they got up and returned to Jerusalem. They found the 11, and those with them gathered together, who said, "The Lord has certainly been raised, and has appeared to Simon." And then they began to describe what had happened on the road, and how he was made known to them in the breaking of bread. So again, even though this time it says the disciples are prevented, they can't understand what has come to pass. And it is a very hard thing to wrap your mind around. That the person you were told was coming to save you, who was coming to free Israel, was going to die? That didn't make any sense, because they couldn't understand how death could be victory. And here's the question I want to ask you today as we read these scriptures. Not only concerning the resurrection, but in our everyday lives, do we allow ourselves to see in the way that the scriptures and God would have us to see, or do we blind ourselves with our own presuppositions? Do we have opinions and ideas that we're determined to hold on to no matter what? When you see the Pharisees talk to Jesus, there are ideas that they will not abandon for no reason whatsoever, because it is what they were taught by their teachers, and they're held on to it. And it doesn't matter if Jesus can prove that the scriptures are told otherwise. because they're holding on to this opinion that they have. And this is very dangerous for us. We can see here in the story of the resurrection that some people almost miss the victory of God in the resurrection because they can't conceive of a way in which God could win by dying. And so as we go about our daily lives, we should ask ourselves, are we seeing this as God would see this? Are we seeing this as the scriptures would have us see this? Or are we seeing this in the way that we want to see this? And it's important that we begin to foster the kind of thing where, as Paul says, to see that we have the mind of Christ and use that mind to be able to see and understand in the way that God does.